Hello, my name is Łukasz Woźniak. I am the author and one of the publishers of the game Titans. Titans is a dudes on a map, a strategical miniature board game that is coming to Kickstarter in November. We are looking for your support to help bring this epic project to life. It is a 1 to 4 player game. The basic game mode is competitive for 2 to 4 players, but there is also a solo mode. And today I will show you the detailed rules for the basic 2 to 4 player mode. We will talk about solo in some upcoming videos. In our previous video, we have talked what are Titans? What is this game about? When did we come up with this idea and why would you want to support it? And please, if you have not seen that video, go ahead and watch it. It's on this YouTube channel. But let me just quickly remind you, what is this game? Titans is a miniature game that is set in a historical fantasy set in a 17th century. So it's a game that has a historical background, but on top of that we have added our legends, our ideas, our alternative history. So you play out the big battles and you lead one of the big nations of that time, but at the same time there are those epic titans and the spirit of the nation that with an extraordinary power helps your army to go into battle. So you would like this game if you like dudes on a map, if you like the territory control games, if you like games with battles, with interaction, if that sounds like your kind of deal. If you like games that maybe, look at the history in a new, different perspective. And also you enjoy it if you like games that are quite easy to get into, epic in scale, very variable and replayable. And the core mechanics are really unique, as I hope you will see in this video. So before we get into the game, let me just explain that this is a prototype. So some of the components are close to final here, but some of them will look much better in the final copy of the game. So this is the size of the box that you will get. A very big box to fit a very big game board. This is the size that it will be. It is a playmat. In the final version of the game, it will be folded game board that is actually two-sided. It has 2 different maps on each of the sides. We have miniatures. The scale is close to what will be the final scale. The 4 Titans miniatures are unique, but each of the armies here have the same army sculpt. In the final game, each of the 4 armies has a unique models for infantry, cavalry and artillery. You can also take a look at these at our Kickstarter preview page. We have dice that in the final game will be engraved. Here we have dice with stickers. The player boards will be cardboard and so on and so forth. So here we have the prepared game for 3 players. At the end of this video I will show you a bunch of examples on how to prepare the game for 2 and for 4 players as well. We will talk about the solo mode in another separate video. First you choose a map. You choose which scenario you're gonna play, and here we have Russia, Ottoman Empire and Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. For 3 players we had to exclude one of the nations and we are not using Kingdom of Sweden right now. Each player has 3 started regions with 1 infantry on each of those and a capital token. Also, we put an active region tokens on some of the regions that are not taking part in the game because we are not playing with the full 4-player game. Each player has their own nation board, control tokens, the rest of their miniatures. One of the players becomes the starting player and each player gets the unique deck of nation cards and 2 cubes to track the strength in battles. We shuffle the support cards, lay out 4 of them. we shuffle the order deck. When we play with less than 4 players, we take out some of the cards. Here on the side we have stronghold miniatures, we have a bunch of victory point tokens, remaining inactive region tokens. We have 2 sets of the dice that we will use, and on our game board we will also track the 3 rounds that we'll have in a game, and we have a face down deck of small cards with secret missions. After we have prepared all of those things, we will take 3 steps in preparing the game before we get into the game itself. First, starting with the first player, each player will deploy 3 units amongst their regions: Titan, Cavalry, and Artillery. So for example, I will split up my forces a little bit, place the Titan here, and my Cavalry and Artillery here on the north. Second player is the yellow player. He decides to place all his units on one region, and the last player will be the Ottoman Empire, who will also decide to divide his forces a little bit. After that, each player gets 3 face down support cards that we keep in our hands, and then each player shuffles their unique nation card deck, and each player always has access to the top 3 of their nation cards. Each of their nation cards have a cost in the top left corner, and each of them has a different ability on the bottom. So each player right now has an option to buy one of those cards and pay the cost with the support cards from their hand. After a player chooses a card, from the 2 cards he have left in his hand, he may choose to place one of them that he maybe doesn't particularly like for this gameplay on the bottom of the deck. And then at any time of the game, player may look at the top 3 cards. So it's easy to handle, and each time you play, you will get different decisions and you will create your own path. And with the cards we have here, there are over 300 unique combinations that you can create with just one nation. Right now each player has chosen the card, then we reveal them after we have chosen them, and we pay the cost with the support cards from our hand. I have bought for the red player a 2 cost card that reinforces artillery. The Russian yellow player has a special card that works when he has a smaller army in the battle, and the Ottoman Empire has reinforced their cavalry. And the last step before we get into the game is the secret mission draft. Each player takes 4 mission cards, looks at them, chooses one to keep, and passes the rest to the left. And then from the 3 cards I will get from my opponent, I pick the second one, pass the 2 again to the left, and then when I get the last 2 cards, I pick one and I place the remaining card on the bottom of the deck. And at this point, everybody has a face down hand of secret mission cards. And after this step, we can begin the game. So the game will take 3 big rounds, and within each round we will go through the whole deck of order cards. And at the beginning of the game and at the beginning of each round, we place cards here in the available order card pool, and with 3 players we get 5 available cards. And then also we place another 5 cards on the top row, and those cards are an upcoming order pool. And now with that, the first player can take their turn. And on the player's turn, they make 4 steps. They take 4 steps, and all of those steps or phases are also shown on the main board as a reminder. So the first step would be to choose one of the available order cards and execute the action or actions shown on such a card. And right now I can tell you all about those actions before we move to the upcoming phases. First of all, some of the actions will allow player to deploy new units. Sometimes it will be a specific unit like one cavalry or infantry and cavalry, but sometimes it could be any chosen unit, and then player chooses the units from their pool and places them on any controlled regions that they have. Secondly, there are movement actions. The actions will sometimes allow player to move a specific unit like infantry or titan or artillery, but sometimes they will allow them to move any one chosen unit. There is also a special movement action that allows player to move one army, up to 4 units from any one region to any neighboring region. So that allows player to move a big army and maybe to start a big battle. There is also an action that allows player to build the stronghold, and then the player takes the stronghold miniature and places it on any of the regions that they control, and it could be the region that they have just conquered. And there is an action that allows player to buy new nation cards. And again, player has always access. He may always freely look at the top 3 cards from their nation deck. Some cards have 1, others have 2. Many of the order cards have 3 actions on them, and when player chooses a card, it's up to them in which order they will execute those actions. So I could take this card and then take 1 movement with my Titan and then deploy cavalry here and then move 1 infantry as well. And that's the phase A of my turn. The biggest thing that happens in my turn typically. In the second phase, phase B, if I have instigated any battles and I might have attacked 1 region or maybe multiple regions, we resolve those battles. So if my opponent was controlling that region and I moved my unit or my units to such a region, I keep them on the border to show that they are moving towards that region, and we will resolve the battle. I will get into the details of the battles in a second. One more thing that it's worth noting, that whenever we move our units and we leave any region empty, we place a control token that shows that that region still belongs to us, and it will grant us points at the end of the round, as well as we may deploy more units onto that region. So as I said, we will come back to the battles in a second. And the third step player takes on their turn is to draw a support card. There are always 4 cards available, and also player can decide not to choose any of these and just to pick the top card of the support deck. Player has to manage his hands of support cards because those support cards have 2 important things on them. The way that they affect the battles and also the requirement player needs to meet in the battle. So there may be a card that will work together with another card I have, but I gotta anticipate and plan what battles I may get into the future or where I may be attacked, what units I want to support. And sometimes the support is connected with the units I have in the battle, sometimes with the units that my enemy has. And the 4th phase of my turn is called the cleanup phase. Each army has a unique deck of nation cards, as I said before, unique nation starting ability, different for each of the nations, unique a special Titan ability that works in the battles, and also a different hand support card limit. So in the cleanup phase, if player exceeds his or hers limit of the support card, they have to discard down to the limit that they have. Also, in the cleanup phase, if player has lost their Titan, now it is deployed onto the game board. The Titans are those mythical warriors that they may be defeated, but they never go away forever. And that completes the whole turn that the player takes. And before we get into the battles, players will take their turns, move, deploy units, buy new nation cards, and after the player takes their turn, the order pool is not replenished. So I had a little bit more options than my opponent, and I could have anticipated, or maybe I could have tried to anticipate which one of the 4 available cards that they will have, they will choose from. And the next player will have 3 cards to choose from, and then again it comes back to me. I have 2 cards to choose from. All the order cards are designed in such a way that I actually want all of them. But depending on the situation, I might want to use this one rather than that one. And depending on what my opponents do, I may have to adjust my plans, adjust my strategy a bit. So when a player has played their turn and there's only 1 order card left, then the last card is discarded as well. The upcoming order card pool becomes the available order card pool, and we reveal new cards to show what orders are coming. And after such a thing happens 3 times, meaning we have gone through the whole set of the order cards, and actually each player has had 4 turns, the round is over. In a 2-player game, the order card pool is a little bit smaller, but still each player will take 4 turns per round. In a 4-player game, each player will take 3 full turns per round. You can also decide to play an extended version of the game and go for the last 4th turn as well. Before we get into the round summary that happens after every round in the game, it is time to explain how the battles work in that game, which is quite important because we battle a lot. As I said before, whenever army moves into an enemy occupied region, they will have to resolve the battle in the phase B of their turn. And the first thing that happens as a sort of an opening to a battle is players would roll the die, the unit dice that they have in the battle. So for example, here we have yellow infantry, cavalry, artillery, and a titan. So 1 die of each color. There are 8 dice in the pool per player. There are 2 sets of dice because there are always 2 players that battle at a time, and the number of the dice that player has in the pool also limits them a little bit in the battle. The exact outcomes that may appear on them appear also on the player board, so it's quite easy to see what strength I may get from those rolls. So the yellow player rolls their dice, and the defending red player has a titan and an infantry die in their pool. Player may use their strength trackers on their board, and after the initial roll, the defender is the one who takes their turn in the battle first. And player has quite a few things they may do in their turn in the battle. First of all, they could use their nation starting ability. For Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, it would be an ability that adds strength if player has 2 cavalry or 2 winged hussar in their army. In this case, it doesn't apply. Player may also use their Titan ability. For this army, it would be an ability that allows player to discard 1 card and flip any of the dice that they have in their pool to their highest outcome. So that helps with the dice roll a bit. Player may also use the nation cards that they have. Some of the nation cards have requirement that player has to meet. For example, this card will only work if the player is an attacker and also they have an artillery in the battle. For example, if player had this card, he could have used it right now because he has the red player has an infantry and the opponent has cavalry. And some of the cards will work once per battle, and some of them will work only once per round. And then they have this flip symbol. If player decides to use them, they rotate them 90 degrees to remember that they have been used already in that round. Player may also play their support cards. And there are 3 types of support cards in the base game, in the base deck that we have here. To play a card from their hand, player has to meet the requirement it has on it. Similarly to the nation cards, if there is a symbol of a type of a unit with a dark black background, it means that player needs to have that unit in their army. If there is a symbol with a red color in the back, it means that the opponent has to have such a unit in their army. To help people with the color blindness, the symbols also have different directions. So even if you cannot see, you will be able to distinguish between those 2 kinds. If the player meets their requirement, they may play 1 or more cards that will help them in the battle. The first card is quite simple. Player may move one of the units from any of the surrounding regions to the battle, bring that unit to the battle. Let's say there is an artillery somewhere here and player meets the requirement. So they move the artillery here. They take the appropriate die from the pool and they get more strength in the battle. That's the first card you may use in the battle. The second one will give player additional battle die. If player plays only 1 card of that type, they get an infantry die that may give them 1 or maybe none additional strength. But if player is able to play 2 cards, the same cards, the requirement may be different, but the cards are the same. Instead of getting 2 infantry dice, they get 1 Titan dice, even if the Titan is not in the battle. What it means is that 1 Titan die is definitely better than 2 infantry dice. So it's smart to try to figure out how you would be able to create those combos in the battle. And the last type of the cards works similarly to the second one. If player has 1 card played, it gives him 1 strength. 2 cards would give him 3 strength, and 3 cards of that type will give them 5 strength. The last thing that the player may do with the on their battle turn, they may discard a card from their hand and re-roll any dice from their pool to maybe get better results on them. For example, here I have gained 2 additional strength by taking that reroll. As you can see, we have different battle dice that we use for different units and also with some special cards that we have. So we have some randomness and excitement connected with the dice, but on top of that, we have to plan, we have to build up nation cards, we have to prepare our hand of support cards, and most importantly, we have to be tactical on the game board. I will be able to use my nation cards and my support cards only if I move, anticipate, try to figure out the best positioning to entice my enemy into a battle where I am very prepared, or to attack where I can see that they are the weakest and I am the strongest. And it's not only the number of the units, but also the ability to meet their requirements and use all the special skills and cards that we have. When the defender is done, and typically those battle stages are very fast and dynamic. They mark the strength that they have gathered in the battle. For the red player, it's 11 strength right now. And then the attacker has a chance to respond. So the attacker typically has a better situation because they already know what is the strength that the defender have gathered in the battle. But if there is a tie, the defender is the winner. So now the yellow player has a task, a challenge to exceed the strength that the defender, the red player, has gathered here. And then, depending on who has the most strength, and as I said, the ties go to the defender, one of the players is the winner. And depending on the advantage that the winner has over the loser, the battle outcome may be different. And we also have it on the main board, so everybody has access to that information at all times. There are three options. The difference between the strength of the winner and the loser may be 0 to 2, 3 to 4, or 5 or up. And according to this table here, first, the loser takes 3 steps. First of all, they may lose 0, 1, or 2 units after losing the battle, and the player who is losing the units chooses which one of them he takes out of the game board. Secondly, the losing player retrieves his units. The attacker would retrieve to the place that they have moved from. The defender would retrieve to any region that is neighboring to this one that they control. And then the loser would draw 1, 2, or 3 support cards from the top of the deck, depending on the advantage that the winner had over them. It's the support of the spirit of the nation that the loser gets. Besides conquering or standing their ground on the region that was the place of the battle, the winner would get 1, 2, or 4 points, depending on the strength difference. If the loser has killed the Titan in the battle, the winner gets additional point. And there's an additional point for the attacker if they have managed to conquer a stronghold. So let me tell you a little bit about the strongholds right now. So the stronghold gives the defender 2 advantages. If the region with the stronghold is being attacked, the defender draws the top card from the support deck before the battle even begins. And then, in the battle, the player who was the attacker, they take their battle stage first. And the defender who is in the stronghold are going second, and they only respond to the strength gathered by the attacker. But as I said, if the attacker conquers the stronghold, it's destroyed and they get additional victory point as well. Also, there are capitals on the game board. Each player has their country, has their nation capital. If my capital is being attacked, it gives me the advantages that stronghold gives, which is a support card, and the order of the battle is changed. But if my opponent is able to destroy the capital, they don't get 1 point as with the stronghold, they get 3 additional points for destroying my capital, so I better protect it well. We have went through player's phase, we have went through the different actions that player may have, and through the way the battles work. Before we get into the round summary, let me tell you about the secret mission cards. Players have drafted the secret missions at the beginning of the game, and each of them may give them 2, 3, or 4 victory points depending on the difficulty of said mission. And players try to complete their mission alongside gaining territories and winning battles. And whenever a player completes a mission, it may be sometimes after a battle or after conquering some regions, they reveal the card, place it aside, and get the appropriate amount of victory points. After the round is over, players go through a round summary. And first, each player gets 1 victory point per each region they control, whether they have any units on there or they don't. Here, the red player would get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 victory points. So you get points from battles, secret missions, and expanding your domain on the game board. Secondly, the starting player token is passed counterclockwise, and we move the round tracking marker, and we go to a reinforcement phase. In this phase, firstly, starting with the new starting player and going in a clockwise order, each player may choose to draw 2 support cards or to draw a new mission card. When they do so, they pick up 2 and decide on one to keep, and the other one goes on the bottom of the deck. In the second step of the reinforcement phase, again starting with the starting player, going clockwise, each player chooses one thing out of the 2 options. They may purchase a nation card, paying its cost, or they may discard any one support card from their hand and deploy any unit onto the game board. So this stage allows players to maybe try to rethink, prepare, get ready for an upcoming round. At the end, the order deck is shuffled, the support cards are exchanged, and all the inactive nation cards are placed in an active position again. When players go through the 3 rounds, and the third round is a little bit different because in the third round each nation card, it has 1 discount, so it's a little bit cheaper to purchase them at the end of the game. And after the third round, after the last victory points that player will gather, players reveal their victory points. We collect them face down, so there's a little bit of the tension and maybe over the table discussion where I will definitely want you to think that they are winning, not me. So when we reveal, we count our victory points, and whoever has the most victory points is the winner. So that's how Titans work. As you can see, for a big game, and big game in just a production scale, also big gameplay wise, we try to keep the rules simple to understand, and we try to make the game as easy to get into as possible. Where there aren't many small rules and exceptions, you will be able to figure out the icons pretty quickly. That's what we have been testing, and newcomers always see within the first round. They get all the symbolics, all the icons, all the small and big rules, and they just enjoy the game, and that was our goal from the very beginning. And each time you play, you may choose a different game setup scenario, and you will choose different secret missions, and you will lead a different nation. And even though you choose the same nation twice, there are just countless different paths you may take within the game as you expand. And each of the nations, they have different basic abilities, different Titan abilities, different support card hand size, and a completely unique deck of nation cards, where each time you play, you actually feel that you're playing a different nation, and you're using the same strategical choices. You're doing pretty much the similar things, but in a different way each time you play. So let me just show you a couple of turn examples, and then, as I said before, let me just show you different examples for a 2 or 4 player setup. So let's say this is a situation we have somewhere at the end of the first round. And right now it is the green Ottoman Empire player turn, and they have quite a few options that they may take. They may decide to attack with this big army and attack this region, or choose this army to also attack this region. They may also decide to attack here. They attack the yellow player as well because they are neighboring with one of their regions, but this army may be too strong for them right now. They may decide to split up and maybe get new forces, or split up amongst different regions to try to conquer as many of them as possible. So the player decides to move the cavalry, infantry, and a Titan unit. They move the Titan and the infantry onto this region, and they move the cavalry here, marking that they still control the region that they have left. After that, they draw a support card. There are no battles, and now it's the Reds player turn. And the red player, they would like to have maybe some more units on the game board. So they have two cards that will give them an additional unit right now. One of them will give them a little bit more movement, and the second one will give them a stronghold, a good defensive structure right now. So they decide to go and build the stronghold at this point. They would build a stronghold here. They can move the Titan, and they move the Titan right here. Just one Titan against two units. And they may also deploy another unit onto the game board. And they deploy a cavalry here, and they will try to make a second pair of the cavalry that will give them additional strength. As I said before, the final miniatures would have unique sculpts for each army, and the red cavalry would be winged hussars. So right now the red player is attacking. He is rolling the Titan dice, and the yellow player is the defender. They have one cavalry and one infantry dice. And they go first. They use their nation special ability. If they have one infantry in an army, not more, not less, they roll another infantry die. He was not so lucky here, and they still have 2 strength. But they may decide to discard a card from the hand and re-roll those 2 low outcome dice, and they gained 1 strength, and they meet a requirement of another card, and they get 4 strength altogether. The attacking player, the red player, they may play a card that will give them an infantry die. But before they do that, they use a card that will move 1 unit into the battle, and that would be an artillery unit. They roll the appropriate die. They have 5 strength right now. It already gives them victory, but they want to go for more. They play a set of 2 support cards, and they meet the requirements, and the set of those 2 cards give them another Titan die, and they have 8 strength right now. And if they can only get 1 more, they would win by a 5 strength difference. So they use the Titan starting ability, they flip 1 die, and they have 9 strength, which is 5 more than the yellow player right now. So the yellow player has to destroy 2 of their units. There are no more units to retrieve, and they gain 3 support cards to their hand. The winning player, the red player, gains 4 victory points right now for winning with such a strength difference, and it was the phase B. And the phase C, they should draw a card, and they should be weary of the attacking army, so maybe they take this one to prepare for the coming battle, and at the end of the turn they would discard down to their hand limit, which doesn't happen. Now it's a yellow player turn, where they have also a lot of options. They could take their full force and try to push the enemy out of this region. They may go with the smaller army and deploy another unit. They don't have to be bothered with that army right now, but it may be risky to do that. They may also go with even smaller army to try to utilize their special ability here that would give them additional movement into the battle. So they decide to deploy cavalry here in their capital. They decide to move a Titan into the battle here, and they decide to move 1 infantry here to expand their territory. They have a special card that will allow them to move another unit, then the players will fight it out. Now the yellow player has more support cards and is better prepared, so there's a high chance that they will crush the red player and force them at least to retreat. And then the green player will choose between the two cards. The last card would be discarded, and then we would go to the round summary. And that's how it goes. The player move back and forth, try to expand. With 3 players, you have 2 enemies, and you try to figure out how to maybe pit them against each other and how to choose your battles the best. So here we have one of the setups for a 4-player game. Remember that this is just the initial setup. After that, each player would deploy their Titan artillery and cavalry, and also maybe indicate where they want to expand. And this one is one of the more aggressive ones, where players are quite close to each other. And the blue player, the Sweden player up in the north, is neighboring with 2 nations. They would go first and maybe decide to split their forces a little bit, or maybe even begin somewhere in the middle to be more peaceful. And the yellow player, the Russia player, he is neighboring with the Ottoman Empire here, and also with the Sweden, the blue player. They also have an option to go north or go south. The Ottoman Empire would deploy their units next, and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth as well. So even with the initial setup, there may be strategical thinking and also already some over-the-board diplomacy that could go on here. And for a slightly less aggressive initial setup for 4 players, you could go with this one, where each player has just 2 regions. In this one, players also have the equal amount of regions that they have to move to get to their neighbors. But here, the distance is a little bit bigger than in the previous one. So maybe players have a little more room to expand before they battle it out. And here we would have an example for a 2-player game between Swedish Kingdom and Tsardom of Russia. As you can see, with the inactive region tokens, we may prepare the game board, where the players would still start somewhat historically with their respective capitals in the right place, and create a war battle zone that will lead to exciting gameplay, a lot of decision making, and a lot of back and forth, where you have to decide where you would expand and where you would attack. So these were just some of the examples for a 2 to 4 player game setups. Those were, I think, just about all the rules that you get. You also need to understand all the different nation cards and all the secret missions, but generally, if you got those rules today, you would be able to set up the game pretty quickly, explain it pretty quickly, and then have an epic battle with your gaming group. We'll tackle the solo mode in one of the upcoming videos. And remember, this is just a prototype. We will be able soon to show you the new sculpts for each of the nations, and you can see a lot more on our Kickstarter preview page. Be with us on the first day, and if you have any questions, please post them in the comment section below. Thank you for your time and for your support. We really needed to bring this epic game to life. Bye bye.